Hey, welcome to the first of many of our new feature called Fellow Freaks inside the Freaks of the Vine podcast. And these interviews will feature believers who, fellow believers who have a significant or have had a significant impact in their roles of their neck of the world for the kingdom of God. My first guest is honestly someone who has done that very thing of really reaching somebody for the kingdom of God. Best known as the legendary esteemed frontman and leader of the epic metal band Deliverance. Our guest is an amazing musician and songwriter who has delved into many different artistic styles and truly excelling at them all. 2018 saw the release of his debut solo record entitled Eraserhead, which he has captured the soul of such Deliverance masterpieces as River Disturbance, Learn, and Camelot and Smithereens. But Eraserhead is an epic masterpiece that can many have called the pinnacle of a long and heralded musical legacy. We encourage everyone to check out the website, which we will give and include in the comment section below here on this particular episode of Freaks of the Vine. So we really encourage you to check it out. But at the conclusion of this, please. Now, for a man that really needs no introduction, but I'm going to introduce you to him anyway, Jimmy P. Brown II.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, bro. I appreciate it.
Well, again, thanks for coming on with us, my friend. And
yeah, of course.
Well, tell us about your musical ventures, man, over the past couple of years, as far as in regard to Eraserhead and some of your other solo work, if you would.
Oh, goodness. Well, it's funny. 2013 saw the release of Hear What I Say, which was literally supposed to be the last Deliverance recording ever. Famous last words. It's like Kiss and Cher and everybody else, you know. It's like it never just wants to go away.
Yeah, absolutely.
And but I'd already been toying and playing with different, solo releases, but I had always been afraid, quite honestly, about just putting anything out under my name. So I just started other band names that I thought were cool. So like Fearful Symmetry was something that I toyed with when I was doing the electronica genre, kind of dark wave industrial, and then when I was asked actually by a really great guy who's not with us any longer, but his name was Carl, and he owned a label and he picked up a Loss of Balance, because I had sold probably just out of my garage, I'd sold about 300 units, maybe 400, not really advertising it, just kind of put a little word of mouth out there. And he just fell in love with it and thought it was very unique and didn't even know about Deliverance. And so he picked it up and we signed a distribution deal together, and he ended up selling over like six or 7,000 units. It was really, really kind of, we were both blown away. But obviously Deliverance fans that picked it up, had no clue what I was doing. But I was trying to do something different. And that was obviously after the assimilation attempt of kind of taking Deliverance an industrial route. Deliverance's career, I had it broken up, and the first years were the ministry years, then there was the industry years, and then there was the creative years. And when we first started, we didn't even think about like being on a Christian label or being the Christian Metallica or anything like that. We just were doing our thing,
right?
And we thought we were going to get signed with a secular label, and I've told this story a zillion times. I don't know if I have to, but it's just hilarious how Deliverance ended up on Frontline Records when we had turned them down. And we ended up signing with Caesar Kalinowski out in Chicago, who had secular bands and Christian bands on his label, and he had just secured Enigma distribution. And then Enigma went defunct. Caesar lost his label, but he sold it to Frontline Records because they wanted Deliverance. So we ended up on Frontline anyway. So it's kind of hilarious. We tried for years to escape them, but we just couldn't.
Yeah, you can't escape what God has planned for you, brother.
so we we did that, but once I got in, I realized, well, this isn't much different from the secular scene. The only difference is the mention of God and Jesus, and
right.
And especially when it comes to paying people, then you get the big old brother routine. No one ever wants to adhere to the scripture that says, the laborer is worthy of his hire. They want to adhere to charity. So, but all that aside, so once I started kind of figuring out the whole GMA scene and how it worked, and how actually secular labels owned the big Christian labels, and they were just as controlling, and it was strange, and it was a strange time for me, especially being a young kid. I mean, I was 18 when we got signed, and there was a lot of disillusionment. And it's funny because people always ask, well, did your disillusionment mean you lost faith? And it's like, I never know. I mean, because men and people have nothing to do with who God is,
right,
and who Christ is. So, it just, when you see, just the imperfection of humanity and
right.
people, it's like, okay, I guess I just never. So for me, seeing that, everybody I was dealing with at the Christian record company weren't really Christian, and their practices weren't Christian, it's like, okay, big deal. It's like, it doesn't stop us from doing what we're doing. And I really felt like there was a reason for the shaping. I mean, the ministry years, what I like to call them, and versus the industry years, I still think the industry years had a lot of ministry, because now I had to change direction. Because now our audience went from 80% non-Christian to 20% Christian, and now it was flip-flop. Now we were 80-90% Christian audience and 20% 10% secular. So I knew at this point I had to change direction as far as like, how am I going to craft my lyrics, and so Weapons was like the big catalyst for it, because it was like, okay, because the first album is super evangelical, right? But Weapons is geared towards the believer. It's geared for them to understand spiritual warfare. And I was really into the Peretti books, at that time. And so, and I realized at that point, since our audience is mostly Christian, it's time to concentrate on ministering to the church and ministering to the believer. And I've been content with that. Now, when I went through the creative years, I just decided that I wanted to explore art, really getting into Francis Schaeffer and everything, and God's usage of the arts. Now I just wanted more of a presentation for people to be able to, because we were all getting older, and as we were getting older, it's like, how many songs about Noah and the same stories you've heard over and over and over, and you get at church and you get at Bible study. Well, I mean, now I'm going to write more and more songs about it. It's like, how about I start telling you about my life as a believer, and my struggles as a believer, and my struggles within my faith and within my life and with my just living. And that was the approach I took from Stave Execution on. And and it's kind of still where it's at. Everything that I write is just coming from my point of view of how things have gone in my life.
Absolutely.
And the thing is, I love reading. There is a blessing about reading those letters back in the day about, how no time saved my life. I was going to commit suicide and blah, blah, blah. And then I heard no time, and it's like, and it stopped me, and I gave my heart to the Lord. And it's like, oh, wow. See, that is awesome. But those are no more great. And no less great than the now emails that I get that just said, you know, your vulnerability and your lyrics, that you show that you're human but still have faith. And even though in your times of doubt, even though in your times of worry, you still hold on to your faith. And
Absolutely.
like,
And I think that's where if you don't mind me interjecting that point.
no, please.
River Disturbance is one of the greatest albums ever recorded, period. And I know I've said that before to people that know that album or who don't. But, you know, Breathing Still is probably lyrically, I think, is one of the greatest songs you wrote.
Thank you.
And I identified with that. For some reason, I heard what you were saying within the story. And I think that the guitar work you did on that song, the ongoing solos, you come back in with the vocals and the guitar, so the solo still continues to go. It was just, it was just a masterpiece. It still is. I mean, it's just,
thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
man. Well, it's held the test of time. And I think a lot of people we did a recent feature in our podcast about, we took the bands we felt like were the most underappreciated of 3 different genres, and that would be college rock, modern rock, in the Christian genre, okay?
Sure,
and then rock, just basically metal, and then like heavy, death metalish. You know, and I basically I narrowed my picks down, my choices down to 3 in each kind of level. And I always thought Gramatrain, Common Children is one of the most underrated bands of all time. And I know that those guys have gone on to do something. The bass player and guitar player have formed a sort of a very strange, sort of almost like an elevator music type of hammock is what they're called. But they're still very good, very, very good. And I think you'd really appreciate some of Hammock's work. But, you know, there was bands like Extol, just so underappreciated. You know, and I thought there was... And obviously, I included you guys. It wasn't for me. It wasn't a matter about being the most popular. I wasn't mentioning POD or anything like that because they got some commercial success. I felt like your body of work and brother, and I don't mean this in disrespect. Most of my friends that love your stuff from Deliverance love the early stuff. Now, my first experience with your music was actually on the California Metal tape. I got that with Neon Cross, Baron Cross. I'd never heard anybody play anything other than Petra, and it was driving me crazy because I was such a Megadeth Slayer, you know, a fan. I was huge into
Attack was right up your alley.
It was, but I was also a huge, you know, Yes, Genesis, Fate's Warning, Queensryche fan. So River Disturbance then appealed to me more from you. And I thought the Stay of Execution and River Disturbance. But I thought one of the things that I hear what I say is still such an underrated album, brother. And Nude is one of the best songs.
Yeah, I think so. I there's some great stuff on there. And yeah, it's like nobody cared. The only thing that I ever read I don't really read interviews or not interviews.
Good for you.
I don't read reviews. In fact, it's always when someone calls me and points out and says, "Hey, did you read such and such and what they said?" And like, no. And so I'll check it out just real quick what they said.
Sure.
And but yeah, the only thing that Hear What I Say ever gets mentioned about is the Maiden cover, and it's like, really? I mean, it was fun, but there's a lot of cool stuff on that album, and I mean, Jason's work on it, Mike Phillips' guitar work, Manny's bass playing.
Manny's bass playing is great, and I think
it is
the drum work on that entire album.
Yeah, there's some good stuff. I mean, Jason Sherlock was just a beast on that record, and
I didn't realize Sherlock played on that album with you. That's so cool.
Yeah, that's
great.
That's who played everything, and you know, we just had such fun recording it, and I just took forever mixing it because I was working like a 60-70 hour work week at the time.
Sure.
And but it was a lot of fun, but I never hear any mention of, like, I mean, the opener, Annals of Subterfuge. I think that's like a ridiculously
it's beautiful
song. I love the ode to Wargasm on Angst, because that's definitely a nod back to Bay Area thrash. And then it kind of, So I take you on that thrash journey in the beginning, and then boom, we go right into the explorative years, the experimental years of going into that song. What is it? Oh my gosh, it's escaping me. What's the third song? That I should have come back, but I'm nothing back there. I can't remember the name of it. Hope Lies Beyond.
Thank you.
And my friend Rick wrote that, and we went into that, and then we go into Nude and some other great songs on there, and it takes you on a journey of the history of the way Deliverance started. Yes, we were heavy, fast, thrashy, and then we moved into the other things. You know, Detox, another great song. Kind of commercial and catchy.
I think Detox is great. I do.
Yeah,
I mean, but I think
funny,
you're
George Ochoa is still to this day, like when we talk, just like, dude, that's like one of my favorite, my top three Jimmy Brown songs that you ever wrote.
Really?
Like, it's so funny.
You know, your experience with a lot of these musicians. And before I get away, by the way, before I ask you this next question, why is Hear What I Say not on Spotify?
You know,
tell us the inside of that. Okay.
I have no idea. It should be.
All of your albums are on there.
I don't use Spotify.
Okay.
But I'll make sure of that because I actually own the rights to that. So I'll make sure that to put it on there. I thought I had put it on Spotify. I know it's on iTunes.
Okay.
Or whatever, Apple Music, whatever
sure.
they call it now. Because I like setting all my stuff for streaming. And the stuff that I don't own, I get really mad when it's not set up for streaming, because it's just a better platform.
Right.
Whatever.
No, I get it. Well, you mentioned George Ochoa, and I wanted to ask you about a couple of the other guys. So obviously, a lot of people, there might be a lot of people listening to this that know anything about Roger Martinez, and we don't need to go to that road today. But do you still talk to him? I just want to know, how is he doing?
Yeah. I mean, it's been a minute. I mean, we last talked about, I think it was a year ago. Yeah, it was 2021. And yeah, you know, Roger's just Roger.
Yeah. Well, you know, he's
you know, we've remained friends this whole time. And, you know, I guess because I always knew, I mean, I met him in '85, and
you knew him before he became who he was.
Yeah, but who he is now is who he was then. And that's what people, you know, don't realize. And I guess, you know, there's a lot of people out there that really hate him because they felt like he duped them and deceived them. And yeah, in a lot of ways he did.
But at the same time, Jimmy, if I may chime in on this one, though, we have to understand something. None of us can control another person's faith in God. None of us can. We've never been able to do that. And when Jesus talks about what he does in the parable of the sower for a purpose, you know, and we don't know where Roger's gonna, what part of. Look at Gary Lanier, right, from Tourniquet. Gary Lanier is a great guitar player from Tourniquet, one of the forming members, along with Ted Kirkpatrick and Guy Ritter. And Gary,
I heard he's not an atheist anymore.
No, but here's his journey. He was a secularist. He becomes a believer, but he's misunderstood, misled on a lot of understandings of Scripture, and he's a very smart man, and he just challenged it. So he wrote a manifesto about why he was no longer a believer, and he made a lot of people mad. Okay, but here's the thing about it. The questions he had, he finally, when he settled down and got out of the industry, affected by what a lot of people don't understand goes on, like you just mentioned in this interview, it settled down, and Guy Ritter never gave up on him. Guy just kept, you know, Guy's been in Hollywood doing like as a gaffer for Hollywood movies, and he just kept reaching out, and he kept saying, hey man, listen, what questions do you have? So finally, apparently they kind of bridged the gap, and I don't know what all happened with that, but I've reached out to Gary. I did an interview along same time I did one with you back in the day when I was doing K-Buzz Late Night, and he was very gracious with his time. He's a super nice guy, like a genuinely great dude.
Oh, he's super. Yeah,
is.
He's a gentleman. He's a good guy.
And look at it now. He comes back, and they just came out with an album called Flood with Victor's playing with him. So
Really?
yeah, a lot of the old tourniquet guys are together. Oh, Eric.
Is Eric in that?
Believe Eric is involved. Maybe it's not Victor, but it's Eric, Guy, and Gary, all three old tourniquet guys. And then it's a gal.
Say, I can't see Victor.
My apologies. No, their bass player is actually
Victor's tough to hard. He's a tough bird to get a hold of, man, and he doesn't like to do anything. So.
Oh, gotcha. So the bass player is a gal, and a lady. I don't remember her name. And the drummer also, I want to say, is somebody who's been around the scene for a bit too. So anyway, I just ordered it. I just ordered a racer head and flood from them. So I want to check it out. Okay, I don't want to ask you about this because when you're thinking about like when you're sharing your new ventures, Racerhead, brother, incredible recording. What I've heard, I wanted to support you, so I didn't just stream it. I wanted to buy it and have a purchase copy, but
nice.
I thought
when you stream it, I make money too. So
I know, but I'm still old school, bro. But I thought your cover version of "Entertaining Angels" was just magnificent, and I appreciate what you write, but when you take somebody else's work and you hear something in your head and you do it, it's incredible, man.
Thank you. Yeah, I it's funny. I lost contact with Peter years ago, but I'm like dying to hear if he heard it. I want to know, did you get a chance to listen to it? The problem is that when a label like Retroactive or Rocks, and they get mad when I say this, but I don't care. I'll say it. They're kind of like the dinosaur collectors, and they grab all the dinosaur bands and they put it out, and they want to regurgitate the past and concentrate on that. And then you'll have guys like Matt and Bill, who are great guys, and like I said, don't think I'm knocking any of them. Girder, all of they're great people. They're good guys. And you'll get a guy like Matt and a guy like Bill that will take a chance and say, you know what, I'll put out Back from Mars. I'll put out Fearful Symmetry. Bill put out my Immovable Walls album from Jupiter 6. But the thing is, they don't know what to do with it. They don't know how to market it. And the reason they don't is because they concentrate too much on, this is Jimmy P. Brown II's new thing. And it's like, yeah, people immediately think it's going to be Deliverance, and it's not. And I mean, if people didn't understand by a 92 when I released Stave Execution that those days were gone, and that I was going to be exploring with every release from that point on.
No, I get that. And to kind of catch up fans who are just learning about a lot of your music, again, we're going to post your website in the link. And I think what's great about your website is that you can go in and you can become a Patreon to support the work you're doing, a lot of the singles work you're doing, which is awesome. And I really encourage people to do that if they're blessed like we are from the music that you've done over the years. But it gives a great synopsis of everything you've done. And so what Jimmy's mentioned about River Disturbance, what we talked about, was in 94, and it was just a phenomenal album. And then Camelot and Smithereens was the follow-up. And I really do feel like some of your most underrated work, I still think that the Hear What I Say is the most underrated album. But I thought that Camelot and Smithereens was one that was just not understood because it was for reasons you just shared with us. But I think, brother, when now you can go back and you can listen to all these records and all these, you can listen to everything streamed. So you can jump around and check out different platforms. I think it's awesome. It's such a blessing to be able to do it. And I really implore everybody to do it. And man, you've been so very gracious with your time. I do have some parting shot questions for you. And if you don't mind.
I was going to tell you, bro, just interrupt me and feel free because, as you know, I have the gift of gab, and I could talk and talk and talk.
This interview can go 3 hours, brother, because I could listen to you talk forever, man. I want to be
thing.
respectful.
I could keep talking and just, yeah, I just keep rolling.
No, you're great. Before I hit our parting shot questions, which are just rapid fire questions, and some of them are fun to get you to giggle a little bit. But what right now, other than the Camelot, are you doing any new singles that we should be looking out for? Obviously, we'll check out your website. Is there something that you're stoked about that you're putting together?
There is one that I'm cooking up right now. I'm going to keep a lid on it
because
it's I've been having fun doing the covers for my Patreon, but I kind of want to put an end to it right now.
Yeah, right on.
I because I am working on an album called Guidestones 2030, and it's all based upon the Georgia Guidestones. I don't know how much you know about those, and the plan for the year 2030 for the World Economic Forum's agenda. Everything. It's a conspiratorial record, but I tie it in with a lot of end time prophecy. Dive real heavy into Enoch and some of the books that people don't know. And it's gonna be pretty awesome.
That's cool.
Super stoked about it. But otherwise, singles. Oh man, I've got one cooking in my head. I called Jim and asked him if he wanted to play on it, and he's pretty excited about it. So we'll see if it works out.
All right.
I'm hearing it in my head because otherwise, I'm having a blast with all the singles. I mean, people seem to love them. So, and I've still got a pretty nice little Patreon base. So.
I saw that it shows your total Patreon counter for how many people are supporting it. I think that's awesome. I just hope it grows for you on that.
Thank you.
Well, I'm very stoked to hear whatever you come up with, brother. You're never going to fail. Okay. How do you keep humble? I know this is hard to answer these questions in more brief fashion, but I want to know how you keep humble with more musical talent in your pinky than most people do in their entire body. Please, how do you stay humble?
I really don't know how to answer that because
it's a compliment, Jimmy. You can accept it from time to time.
I love that whatever has been bestowed upon me is appreciated. And that's why I feel it's important to utilize my time to give it back.
Very good. I like that.
And because there are a lot of things in talent that you work real hard at, and then there's some things that just come very naturally.
Agreed.
And I've seen a lot in my life with what I do just come naturally, and that's something that you can only say this was completely a gift, and this is something God bestowed upon me.
He did.
Now, and if such were the case, then it's to be used for His glory. And that means to give that gift right back to the people. And so if people listen, that's all I've ever wanted is just, even if it's a few, as long as you listen.
Jimmy, you have accomplished more than you probably realize. And you've had a huge impact on several of us who are checking it, will listen to this interview, myself included. I'm a musician. I'm also a songwriter and barely, but I love it. I just love doing it because I've enjoyed creating, and I don't do it as much as I used to. I still just play on the team with the church that I pastor, but brother, it's not even about that. It's about enjoying the music because music is art and art is to be appreciated, and you have just done a magnificent job. So there's that.
Thank you.
I appreciate you. All right. Where's the best place to eat dinner in Vegas?
Here, huh? That's a tough one because there's so many good food spots here.
I know.
But if you really, really want that fancy dinner,
let's not go fancy, bro. Let's go low down.
I like Wolfgang Puck's cut for
okay.
fancy, but
okay, that's fair.
But I'll tell you, if you want just a great dirty burger, man, there's a couple of joints here in town. Bobby Flay's, I love his burger joint, but I'll tell you, the ones off the strip, like that are no-name burger joints, man, those are great. And there's some good Mexican food here too. A lot of Roberto's and little cubbies that just have great Mexican.
Okay,
food.
so
Just
look,
depends on what you want.
we'll
And
look
there's
off strip.
Oh man, but for good Chinese, I'm telling you right now, you got to go to this place in Henderson called New York Chinese. Oh my God, they're so good.
New York Chinese, duly noted. Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
We'll do that, man. Thank you.
Where are you located?
So we're in Topeka, Kansas.
Oh, right
So
on.
yeah, we're
man.
just an hour to the west of Kansas City. So
Right on.
yeah, not too far. Right in the middle of nothing and everything at the exact same time, brother.
Love it.
Okay, this question might fly right over, but you made a joke one time, and I've never forgot it, and I don't know if it'll hit with you or not. I'm going to try it. Do you still prefer Hanes underwear, or have you graduated to something more comfortable?
Oh man, yeah, I was a Hanes fan for a long time until I discovered Jockey. So
Okay, fair enough. You made a joke about that, and my co-host at the time, who was the original co-host of the show that we did, his name was Chad Krause, and he'll end up checking out this podcast. He's a huge fan of yours, but he laughed so hard I had to end the interview, and he was the engineer, so it was funny. It was a great time.
Well, did I tell you in that interview that I don't know what it was. There was a time I just, I think it was kind of like, because obviously I have disorders that, that shrinks call disorders. I just look at them as me. But there was a time where I used to, especially when writing Stay and Learn, I would just, for comfort, I don't know why, I would get a pair of underwear and put it on my head, and they were striped, so it kind of looked like a hat, right? And I was doing that every single day, and I mean for like a year. And what was hilarious is there was this kind of dingy girl that lived next door, and I would come outside and hang out, and she was like, one day she just comes up to me and she goes, "You always have the coolest hats." It was like I'm wearing underwear. I would just leave it on all day that I didn't realize I would walk outside.
Jimmy,
with it.
you missed the boat on entrepreneurial right there. I don't know. Let's see. That's awesome. How? Two more rapid fire questions. How on earth does Helen put up with you? I just want to know. She's such a. I met her at the New Earth. Was it New Earth? It was a New Earth Coffee House in Kansas City, and you guys were on the Disturbance tour. And that's where I met her. My wife and I both did, and I lost my wife 8 years ago. I have been blessed in being remarried, but my first wife and she was very instrumental when I got into radio, and I did a program in the middle of America here for 7 years. And you guys were just a mainstay. And so we promoted you. You were really gracious with the interview. The band was off stage. You guys were really tired and you took the time. But when we came to see you in concert, Helen was on tour with you and she was at the table. And my wife and her they just started having a conversation, and we all stood there and talked for about 15 minutes. And I brought up the last question to her, and she was so fond of it. But let me let you. How does she put up with you, brother? She's so cool.
I have no idea. In fact, next weekend we celebrate our 34th.
Oh, congratulations, man.
Yeah, and I still don't know. I really don't understand. Because, I mean, she's quirky, and that's okay. But I'm a whole other thing.
Right on. Larger than life, Jimmy.
Manny has always said, people have always called you quirky and eccentric, and he was always, all these other musicians, they were, because the reason we got the nickname the Big D wasn't because it was Deliverance, the Big D. It was all the bands that we played with, Barren Cross, Neon Cross, Vengeance, and untold amounts of bands. They didn't like me, and they called me the Big.
Got it.
Yeah,
that's what. Yeah, you got the nickname. Interesting.
And so they all called us that, and Brian and Chris would always rise to my defense, and you just don't understand him. He's eccentric, he's strange. And I would like, why do you guys tell them that stuff? I'm not eccentric, I'm not strange. And they were like, well, they all call you the Big D. And it's like, the Big D. I'm like, oh, that's cool. Deliverance, the Big D. And I just adapted it.
That's awesome. You know what? They just don't understand extroversion is what they don't understand, brother.
I guess I'm definitely. I guess I've never believed in having a filter, so I don't.
Good
care.
for you. Good for you. Good for you. Your wife told us this at that table that night. Bowie's still your favorite, isn't he?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
If you go, I went on about 30 days ago. Went on this kick of Bowie for some reason. Again, sometimes you just uncover. So my favorite song is, you never guessed this, My TVC 15. I love Station to Station. Song. What a great album. And so it's just a great song. Anyway, it's a time when I think Changes is on there. No.
Changes is a wonderful album. It's not on Station to Station, but Changes is a great song.
Golden Years is on Station to Station.
Yes,
that's what I was
Golden
thinking.
Years.
Which is a great song
another
too.
Wonderful song.
Just anything that he did, and he was such a good dude. So,
TVC 15 is one of my favorites because the story is so strange.
Yes,
the holographic TV that sucked his girlfriend in.
But how telling is it if you think about it? It was really predicated on where we are now, where sometimes we lose relationships because we lose people to these stupid cell phones and everything else.
Oh yeah.
So how fitting is that Bowie was a little bit of a futurist without even knowing?
Oh yeah, he sure was.
Hey man, as we close this interview, I want to ask you: would you give our listeners some final words of encouragement? I mean, this is a crazy world. You and I on Facebook bantered back a little bit about Dr. F. Which reminds me of Dr. X from, it's almost like Queensryche had it down with Operation Mindcrime. But with all the stuff going on, all the craziness, just give our fans and give your fans. Let me rephrase that. Give your fans, your listeners, some words of encouragement and wisdom from Jimmy P. Brown II, please.
I don't know about wisdom, but I can say this is do your own research.
I love it.
Don't let, and I've been saying this for years about everything, about including the scripture. And I know you're a pastor, and God bless you, but I don't even let a pastor interpret the scripture for me. I will go and research it, tear it apart, go search the original languages. I will do whatever I've got to do. And just like when I studied Judaism, I decided, you know what, I want to study Judaism. I didn't go to a Christian Jew. I went to a rabbi, and I said, I want you to teach me Judaism. I've always been, and when I wanted to learn Hindi or Hinduism, I went to go straight to a guy that was the way he grew up, because you don't want to learn from a very biased area. And so my thing is, just always do your research. That the minute I saw that creep on the TV, I knew there's something wrong.
That's absolutely right.
This little jerk. And the one thing I always tell people, the biggest advice I can say, don't ask God for money. Don't ask God for this or that or the other thing. The biggest thing that you can pray to God for that's vital and important for you in your life is discernment.
Mm-hmm.
That's the key, because you have good discernment, then you're going to live a pretty good life.
Yeah.
and
you're going to live a peaceful life, Jimmy, right?
Yeah. And that's really what and the biggest thing that this did was it instilled fear, and more importantly, it distracted. And I think that was the key. That was the idea behind the whole thing with what's been going on the last 2 years, is distraction and fear.
Mm-hmm.
So, well, first of all, as believers, we already know the scripture, right? God hasn't given us a spirit of fear, but a power, love, and sound mind. Sound mind, because see, fear leads to an unsound mind. Fear leads to doubt. Fear leads to irrationality.
It leads to chaos.
And to chaos. So you've got to know and discern what's going on. And, you know.
Brother, I mean, that was, you might not have thought that was going to be full of wisdom, but that was wise. That was very wise. That was wonderful. I want, just so you know this, tell him, Gage, you can't see Gage. He's the engineer.
Hi, Gage.
What's up?
Tell Jimmy do you remember what I said at the end of the sermon? What advice I gave to that young man last week? Do you remember? Question everything.
Yeah.
I tell people all the time, I teach apologetics, which is giving a reason for the hope, for your faith. But I tell people, you've got to question it. The only way that any one of us, I was not raised in the church. And so, I spent a lot more of my life away from God than I have with. Mm-hmm. So I'm transparent with that because I think you can't, I'm not into religiosity. I hate the word of faith movement. I hate all of that because it's so wrong. It's probably a reason, I think when I remember reading the story of what Doug Van Pelt had actually interviewed Roger Martinez, Roger was in that realm and he saw the fake healings and all this garbage, and it's just what it is, right? But we have to experience that to come back around full circle. So nobody knows anybody else's path except for God for each of us. But you've got to discern that was perfectly said, brother.
Huh. Well, hopefully it helps.
Truth Bomb by Jimmy P. Brown II. Brother, let's make sure everybody, please get on, check out the website, see what he does. If you've never heard anything of what our friend Jimmy here has done, you have got darn near 35 years of catching up to do. And I want to. I really want people to start with. I'm going to just say it. I could say start with River Disturbance or Learn or Stay of Execution, but I'm going to tell everybody, please start with Eraserhead. I thought you really came full circle with this, man, and to appreciate what you've done now and where you're going is just going to be a total joy for all of us. So
thank you. I wait till you hear Guidestones.
Guidestones, we will be waiting and ready for it, my friend.
Absolutely.
Jimmy,
Absolutely.
Hey, man, we'll be praying for you, brother, and we appreciate you and your time.
Always, man. I appreciate you.
All right, take care of yourself.
All right, you as well.